So good morning or good evening or good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to have Lavinia here with me today. Welcome to the Smarter Career Moves LinkedIn Live Show. We are here every Thursday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. So, you know, Lavinia, I have to tell you too, I've had such a problem trying to pronounce your last name, and I learned from the pronunciation on your LinkedIn profile. And you know what? I thank you for that. And it's a good lesson for people if if you're having trouble pronouncing somebody's name. So I'm welcoming Lavinia Thanapathy, correct?
Fabulous, Annette.
Yeah.
That is brilliant. It's
Yeah.
Lavinia Thanapathy. It's said the way it's spelled. It's super. I'm so happy to be here with you, Annette.
So for people who don't know you, tell us a little bit about, kind of what you do, who you are right now, and the things that you're doing.
Oh, wow. This is the tell me about yourself question
Yes,
in
of
the
course.
interview, right? It's like, did you read my resume?
I did. I read your LinkedIn profile and I have questions that I found there. But for people who don't,
So So I don't know if you've seen this, but on TikTok, there's this viral thing. So, where someone goes to the interview and then they said, tell me about yourself. And the person goes, have you read my resume? And the person says, yes. Well, then tell me about myself.
no, I haven't seen that. I'll have to check it out. I just
So
want
yeah, no, thank you for inviting me on your show. I'm so delighted to be here. My name is Lavinia. I am here in Berlin, Germany. But behind me, you can see this very, I don't know, I guess it looks oriental in many ways. This is a painting of doorways from my home, which is in Singapore. And in Singapore, we have an amalgam of cultures. And the kind of art that you see here, it's called Peranakan art. And it's an amalgam between Chinese and native Malay cultures. And so that's a little bit of what's behind me. And the national flower of Singapore is the orchid. So I have a little bit of orchid here as well. So this is very much all of me, the European and the Asian and all of them mixed up in between.
Well, it's absolutely beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I just and lovely to know that because I've seen pictures before, but I didn't know what that was. So, you know, um, right now, and I'd like to kind of jump in since we're here today, and we're talking about personal branding on LinkedIn. And I would like to say to anyone, out in the audience, we thank you for being here. Please say hello and let us know where you are joining from. We can see your comments here in the studio. So please do, if you have questions, put those also in the chat. So I'm hearing a little bit of feedback. That's weird.
Oh, I wonder what's causing that. I can change to a different headphone, which might help. Hold on.
Okay. I just want
Let's see.
everybody to be able to hear everything.
I don't hear the feedback, but it could be that I'm too loud. So hold on. Let's see if we can turn me down a little bit.
I hear my voice feedback. I think it might be the headphones because I've heard that before. So anyway,
Should we try to swap over? I can try to
okay.
put in my earbuds and see if that works a little bit
Okay.
better. Let me just make sure it doesn't pick up my turn that off. Hold on. And it's always interesting, these things, isn't it? It's
I
always
know, I know. I'm
something
not
that
I'm not hearing it right now. I'm not hearing it now at all.
you're not?
Nope, I'm
So
not hearing it. So maybe it was just some kind of little glitch or something. So anyway, sorry about that. Sorry to the audience out there for switching up a little bit. So the thing is that we're talking here about personal branding, and personal branding and engagement are they're all over the place. Those are kind of almost buzzwords today, and it seems like personal branding is a new thing, although I read about it in the early 2000s in a book called Make a Name for Yourself. and I believe it was sort of directed at women. And it was written by someone, someone in PR and a brand strategist. But for people who, wonder what is personal branding, because I wonder about that myself. What would Can you kind of define it for us?
So
What?
there's a lot of really good ways to define it, but I
Okay.
find that the way that's helpful for most people to think about it, it's about controlling, and today, very specifically for the way we are living today and the way that we're communicating today, it's very much about controlling your reputation. And that's essentially all it is. And right now, it's about controlling your digital reputation, because that's really how most people are having interactions with you. That's what most people, and people are making these decisions quicker and quicker. They're coming up, they're deciding whether yes or no. It's like swipe right and swipe left on Tinder. Not that I've ever used it, but I've seen Tinder, Swindler. I know how this works. I am pretending to be cool here, but essentially people are swiping right or swiping left on you all the time.
Yeah.
And what you're doing with your personal brand is making yourself more sticky. You're having people just linger a little bit longer because they heard something about you. Your name's a little bit different. Something about you stands out in the sea of sameness. And that's what you're doing with your personal brand. You're turning yourself into someone a little bit harder to swipe right through, because the decisions are being made really, really quickly. And you want to be stickier in order that you can make the impressions that you want to make, whether it's for your career, whether it's for your business. You want people to remember you. And that's what your personal brand is there to do for you.
Yeah, I've seen that on TV and movies too. They're swiping left, swiping right, picking out a mate. It's interesting how things are today. So I just want to say hello. We have some friends in the audience that I'm not seeing here in the studio. Momita is here. Hello, Momita. Thank you so much for joining us. And Juanita is also here, and Jillian Whitney. Oh my goodness. So we're so excited to have you here. And please do put your comments in the chat. And I'm not seeing them in the studio, but I can certainly pick them up from the chat. So I'm excited for that. So um, when and I think of that too. It's kind of an easy way for people to think about it, instead of, oh, it's my personal brand, and it is your reputation. And there's so many things on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is really kind of our face to the business world. I mean, it's the world stage, and there's 800 million people, 850 million people on there. And it's so easy to get kind of lost in that shuffle because, we're one person, and even someone with tens of thousands of followers still, it's not so easy to stand out on LinkedIn. And I know that one of the things that you talk about is content. And I'm sure you've heard, you know, coaches, career professionals say, oh, you must post 7 days a week, or you must post 5 days a week. And, I think of it's kind of like going to the gym. And in January, people sign up for the gym. They go for 3 weeks every day and then never again. And so can you talk a little bit about kind of why that whole post every day is a fallacy, really, but people don't have to do that, and how to find your content that's good, like for you, for your brand.
Oh, that's such a great question, Annette. So there's a couple of questions in there. So let me tackle them
I
in
know, I
order.
know.
It's cool. It's all good. So in terms of consistency, in terms of how often you should post, my suggestion is you should find whatever is your minimum viable consistency, and consistency over a period of 3 months. Okay, what can you do over a period of 3 months? If you think you can post 5 days a week, 7 days a week for 3 months, then go ahead and do that, because that's your what's viable for you. But I don't post that often. I mean, I post like once a week, sometimes once every 2 weeks, but I'm in a different stage of growth in LinkedIn than maybe someone who's new to the platform trying to build a following. So you really want to start by knowing your purpose. always start with your purpose. Why are you on this platform? And that's a big question, but also right now, like today, what is my purpose on the platform? So today, for instance, I'm launching a course. So my purpose on the platform is very focused on my course. But yesterday, I might have been much more interested in getting some speaking gigs because I'm a professional speaker. So then my focus on LinkedIn might be very much more on getting more speaking gigs, which would be a different strategy. So know why you are on the platform as a big picture, but also know why you are on the platform at this moment. And then you can make the right decisions for your content. Never feel pressured to post more often just because everyone else is. FOMO is real on LinkedIn. A lot of people feel this. I get you, I feel you, but don't feel you have to. You can absolutely grow much faster on LinkedIn if you are posting regularly. And every 24 hours is more than enough. I know some people on an extreme trajectory, they're choosing to post like 2 or 3 times a day. If you're doing that, make sure you're leaving at least 4 hours between your posts. I don't recommend it, but I know some people are really on a quest to become an influencer. More power to them. But for me, that is exhausting. Most of my clients have a job and their job is not posting on LinkedIn. So finding a way to post content that is in line with your lifestyle, your goals on LinkedIn, and what time you have available. It should not be your full-time job unless this is what you do.
Right.
So make it work.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And, you know, one of the things too I want to ask you about, and forgive me because I don't have this written down, but I heard you recently talk about, having like these three different areas that you talk about. And I know one I believe is change because that's kind of your thing. And one of them is something bigger than yourself. And I think the one in the middle was your expertise. Is that kind of
Yes.
okay?
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, Annette, you've remembered that so well. So I talk about the 3 buckets of content that I shape my content around. Yeah. So I have 3 buckets and I have 3 different labels for my 3 buckets. And the first bucket is around change. This is my expertise. So whatever your expertise is, this is the usually this is where a lot of your qualifications come from. You might have a degree in this space. This might be where a lot of your work experience is from. So this is your expertise space. Now there's a second bucket that is for me where personal branding sits, and personal branding sits in the bucket which I call what I get paid to do. And so in this bucket is where I have products for sale. So things that are not necessarily from my first bucket, but some people have a lot of flow between expertise and what they get paid for. But I have a very distinct what I get paid to do. And for me, it's around how people change the way they appear in the world. So it's around personal branding, it's all around LinkedIn, it's around public speaking. All of this falls in this bucket. And the third bucket that I have is the bucket that I call bigger than you. And many people struggle a little bit with content, but if they had a bigger than me bucket, which I have, then this bucket can always come to your rescue whenever you run out of content. You see, buckets 1 and 2 are all about me. I'm posting about my knowledge, my business, it's all me, 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 and it's exhausting. No one
Yeah.
can talk about themselves all the time. It's exhausting. And this is how people burn out. But if you had a bigger than me bucket, and your bigger than me bucket, for me, bigger than me is around gender equity. But it doesn't have to be something like that for you. It can be around pets, it can be around parenting, it can be around gardening, it can be around anything that is bigger than you, where you're not just talking about the you. You're talking about something else and something where you can affect a bigger change in the world. And that's something that many people don't define for themselves. They may have it in their lives, but they don't define it as a content bucket. So they're not looking there. They're not looking there to supplement what they're talking to the world about. And so it always ends up being me, 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 and me, and me, and me. And it's very tiring to talk about yourself all the time. So I really recommend having a bigger than me bucket.
I love that. And I remember this little girl is me, the whole campaign that was going. And, obviously as a woman, I so love that you are shining a light on that. And, I hear that, and I have been inspired by you. And I chatted, Momita and I had a conversation a few weeks ago over a weekend. And I have started to sort of expand into that space a little bit, talking about the nomination of the first Black female justice to the Supreme Court a couple of weeks ago, which I am so excited about. And that's just one of the things I'm trying to, kind of move into that area as well. And it's very satisfying to say something that you think is important that's not about you, right?
Right,
So
absolutely. And you know what's sad on LinkedIn is that there are also people who will. So while this comes from a really good place, part of LinkedIn's I don't know, it's culture or something around it. It's that it's been very it can push back against many people who talk about social change. So you can find yourself on the receiving end of lots of a criticism around it as well. And I know a lot of, particularly women of color on LinkedIn, have been struggling a lot with this of late. And LinkedIn is trying to step up to put in better controls. But yeah, as you start talking about this, and as you start including it also increases your network, right? Because you suddenly start seeing all these people in your feed who are also interested in this space, and that's great. You get to build a much bigger community around these issues, but you'll also find those people on LinkedIn who are less than supportive, let's say. So,
yeah.
I always tell people, be aware and be ready to deal with it.
Yeah, well, I can take it. I'm not a kid. I've been around. And, it's so funny in a way. Like, I do steer away from being, too political or something like that. But for things like we've just been talking about, I find personally, if someone sees that on LinkedIn, and because of that they don't want to hire me or work with me, well, that's fine. I'm good with that, because it is important. And again, I've gotten that inspiration from you and from Momita. So another word that's kind of bandied about, and I think we've been kind of talking about that, and people here say, oh, engagement, LinkedIn engagement is so important. So when it comes to engagement, what do people mean when they say, oh, LinkedIn engagement, that's where it's at? What does that mean?
They mean the numbers. That's what they're talking about. What
Oh,
they mean is the numbers. Are you getting the likes? Are you getting the follows? Are you getting the connections? But that's not what I think LinkedIn engagement is around. I started off saying that it was really important to know why you're on the platform. And when you know your why of why you're on the platform, then you can measure the things that are important to you. When I teach people who are new to LinkedIn how to use the platform, they all want things to measure. So I show them the things that they can measure, all the various things you can measure on LinkedIn. But at the end of the day, the only measurement that matters is whether your purpose is being met. So for me, my number one purpose when I first joined LinkedIn was to establish some thought leadership. I wanted to be someone, because I write on this issue, and I wanted to be thought of as an expert in this space. So I started to write about it. And so for me, it's really important that I get found with the things that I write about. So I prioritize that over many other things. I don't have the biggest following on LinkedIn. My posts don't always go viral. It doesn't matter to me. I am getting recognized for the things that I write about that are about things that matter to me. And that's what I'm looking for. And LinkedIn is excellent, excellent for being found for your thought leadership. So I know some people use Medium and various other methods, but honestly, LinkedIn for me has been the single best way to establish thought leadership. And the second thing I want to do is to be able to have a network that moves with me. My husband is a career diplomat, and we move around the world all the time. I need a mobile network. So that's the other important thing for me with LinkedIn, that I can take my network with me
mhm.
when I go somewhere else, and I can grow it and still take it with me again for the next posting. So it's really those things that I count. But you should count the things that matter for you. And what other people are talking about, that's other people's LinkedIn. Your LinkedIn is your experience of LinkedIn. So it's a cut out the chatter, Focus on your purpose of being on LinkedIn and see if you're getting that met, and keep adjusting what you're doing on LinkedIn till you get that met.
Yeah, I love that. And for me, the most enjoyment, I will say, is in the comments and in the direct messages, and getting to know people like you. I mean, I've never met you. I met you on Clubhouse. We've engaged there and on LinkedIn. And right now, I feel so grateful for the people I know all over the world who are part of my community or my tribe. And the central focus is LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn. So, I'd like to talk to you and ask you to give us some maybe some tips around change. Now, I know your TEDx talk was titled "Embrace the Crazy." And for people listening, I'd like to mention that I just found out that your newsletter on LinkedIn is also titled Embrace the Crazy. I didn't know you had that. I just subscribed this morning when I found that. So if you're not subscribed already, please do, because there's tons of great information. Um, but one of the things you talk about is, the challenges and the emotional challenges of change. And I find as I get older, I don't embrace change the way I did like in my 20s. It was like, yeah, whatever, it was just like go where the wind takes me. And but if you could just share maybe just a couple of the common emotional barriers that people have when it comes to change, and how they can kind of, I don't know, address or overcome them.
Yeah. No, look, I'm with you. I'm no spring chicken myself. And I feel it the more we move, each time it gets harder. So, and we have no choice. This is part of our life. We move every 4 years, and we move internationally. So it's always an unknown place that we're going to go to, and so it's interesting. But we have this very privileged move too, because we get very supported through our move. So I can't complain about it. But it does make you very good at getting used to change. And a lot of what I teach about change now comes from just watching, constantly watching. I, of course, at work, but also the real lives of people who have to live this life. Some people are just much more successful at it than others. This kind of life, it breaks families up, it breaks marriages up, it breaks people down, because it's very hard to keep moving when you don't have a support system, when you go to a new place and you have to start all over again. So a lot of my knowledge about change is learned, but also a lot of it just from experience, just watching it happen over and over again. And the first thing that we teach our children, because our children have to deal with this life all the
Oh,
time,
yes.
the first thing we teach them is there is no normal. And it is the most important mindset shift that we all need to have. Never mind normal is how I phrase it. And it's really important, because if they look around and they think these kids have normal lives, but we come in and we have this weird life, they will never be able to fit in. But if they go around and if what they see is everybody has their own normal, that means they come from this entire mindset of everything is normal. Nothing is normal. Everything's normal. My kids will tell you they're weird. They'll come up and say, "Yeah, we're the weird kids. It's okay." And they don't think anything different of it. Our children have different colors. Like our oldest daughter is blonde-haired and blue-eyed, and we have the youngest one is like sort of, I don't know, latte macchiato. We have different kinds of coffee in our house. So our children are the range of Starbucks. Like, what color do you want? We have a mix. And they're wildly different. They don't even look like siblings naturally. So you wouldn't like look at the five of them and say, okay, this is a family. They look like brothers and sisters. They don't. And so they're so used to family being different as well. And what they consider normal in terms of family, what they consider normal in terms of lifestyle, it's different for everyone. And I think that's the most important mindset shift for a lot of people. Everything is normal and nothing is normal. Having that as teaching that to our children young makes them very accepting as they go along in the world. So I think that's how our kids keep their sanity.
That is just mind-blowing for me. And it is so true. And I think part of that too is you never know what's going on in other people's lives either. you know um social media is one of those places where, people put whatever they put, and I love your saying about that too. The different types of social media where people on LinkedIn, everybody's successful, and what is it? Facebook, everybody's happy. I mean, it's just,
Right.
you know, and you don't know what goes on behind closed doors, what families are like, but I love that idea, especially today, in the times we live in. The past few years has been so, I think, different, but I mean, it's just traumatic for the world. And the idea of just getting into that and thinking, that there's no normal, I think can be a saving grace, a saving grace for people, because, you know, tough to think about. So
Well, Maya Angelou has this great saying, if you're always trying to be normal, you'll never know how amazing you can be. And it's really very true. While you're holding on to normal, you'll never ever know how amazing life can be or how amazing you can be. So it's really very powerful. Just letting go of this. And especially in these difficult times. So yeah.
I thank you for that, because I am a big fan of hers, and I had not heard that before. I'm familiar with a couple of the others. People will remember how you make them feel, not what you say or do, or whatever the actual quote is. And very, very wise woman, very wise woman. So, you know, I, as I was looking at your LinkedIn profile before we were having this chat today, I see that you have kind of spent your career in communications, like started with PR, and you kind of, it hasn't been like a straight line, but it's been kind of a weavy, not like all over the place. And, what drew you to that to have that as your career?
Yeah, look, I have not had a linear career at all, and I think one of the big learnings from my that I've been able to be successful, even though I had this super circuitous route. And the reason I had a circuitous route to through my career is because of this constantly having to move, and you can't really build a linear career when you're doing that. So my husband has the linear career, and he is the last, I think, that will ever have. I think his generation will be the last to ever have a linear career. He joined the foreign ministry as his first job, and he will leave and he will retire from the foreign ministry. And he would have done pretty much just that all throughout his career. And this just does not exist anywhere else anymore. And that's over, even in traditional careers like diplomacy. So that's not going to happen again. So for me, I was drawn to it because communication was just natural for me. I come from a legal background. I'm a lawyer by training, and I accidentally fell into my first job in communications. It was a complex role that required someone who could take complex things and make them simple. And that I discovered I had a bit of a skill with. So taking complicated things, making them simple, and that's what I did. And then I realized I kind of know how to do this. And so I started to learn. I put myself into different roles where I could learn different things about branding and communications. And so that's what I've been doing all this time. And then of course when we this move with the pandemic, it did allow me to also have a digital business now. A business where what you see here, this is where I deliver talks, this is where I deliver trainings. This is it. This is where I do everything and I can reach the world with it. It's so amazing. I live in awe of the technology that we have and that it allows us to do this. I did a program at Oxford about 2 years ago. And I'll tell you, one of the interesting things, all the women in the room were all they were all women in very high ranking positions. There was a woman who was heading who was the postmaster general for her country. There were women who headed hospitals, and all of us were asked to draw our career journey. And when we all held it up, there were no journeys like this. None, not the one. No woman in that room had a journey like this because our lives don't go like that. Women don't get that option. We have to do a few loops at least, especially if we have families. So it was interesting. I wasn't the only one. And for all the women who, if you're watching this and you don't have a linear career journey, it's okay. It's more common than you think.
So when you talk about this, and actually, I've heard you mention being a lawyer, and it had slipped my mind. Did you actually did you practice law for a bit before you got into PR?
No, not for the. I never practiced. I was qualified in Australia and in the UK. I did. I'm very qualified, but I never practiced. I didn't enjoy it. I did a lot of work experience in what they call, and I clerked, and I didn't enjoy it even slightly. And later on, I went to work for law school. And then I realized I would have enjoyed academia. So if I'd had that option, if I'd
Oh,
thought about it at the time, I might have gone on to stay in the law because I enjoyed studying law. I might
yes,
have stayed on and gone into becoming an academic in the law because I enjoyed the study. I just didn't enjoy the practice.
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, it's I think, well, at least I found, because my career has been very zigzaggy as well, but I found that things that I picked up in other careers, other positions, they kind of feed together and make you. And I have to say, although, I say this and people I think sometimes think I'm crazy, a lot of what I learned just working with people, I got when I was a server and a bartender back in my 20s. And I learned how to deal with people, different types of temperaments. And one thing that saddens me, and I'll get off this tangent, but it saddens me is people have often little respect for people in service type positions, and those are so important and difficult positions in so many ways. So it just made me think of that. Now I do want to turn to, and you had mentioned earlier, launching this new, I guess, training, Lavinia's Club, and you launched that recently, I believe. And so what was kind of the impetus behind you starting that, and who is it for, and who is it designed for?
Thank you. Thank you for asking. So it's just launched. Today's the first day that the first lessons have gone out to the people who've enrolled in the course. Today's the very first day. So exciting. So I started the course because I realized a lot of people were getting very bad advice about LinkedIn. And you must know this too, because when people come across your desk, you see they've been given such bad advice about LinkedIn. And I know LinkedIn can be powerful. I built my business with LinkedIn and being a bad salesperson. And I don't mean it in any other way. I don't have anything against sales. I'm just not good at it. And if I wasn't good at LinkedIn, I would have no business, like zero. There would be nothing happening for me. But because I'm good at LinkedIn, what I was able to do was rely on inbound leads. And I know people can do that. And I know it's possible. I've done it myself. So I want people to be successful on LinkedIn, whether they're looking for a career, whether they want to grow their business, they can do it with LinkedIn, but they need to be a little bit smart about it. They can't be listening to these fly by night teachers about LinkedIn who have no clue. Honestly, everyone's a LinkedIn trainer. And then you go to their profile and they have like, I don't know, 700 followers and, 3 posts. And I'm like, they're teaching people how to do this. You don't need millions of followers. You really don't to be successful on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not a numbers game, but you do need a critical mass and you do need to have some credibility on the platform. It's a very it's a high trust platform. People trust what's happening on LinkedIn more than they do on any other platform. So you want to turn up with the highest level of integrity on this platform. And when you don't, they will notice. People notice these things. People are making these judgments, even if they're not saying it to your face. They're making these judgments and they're putting you in a category of untrustworthy if you're doing things like that. So I saw so much of this going on. So I decided I know there are lots of great LinkedIn trainers that we know, and the ladies of LinkedIn are all fantastic, fantastic at LinkedIn. And we give this advice for free on Clubhouse. Whenever you come and see us, we'll give this advice for free. But I noticed people needed a structured program. And since I was doing it for companies already, I decided I would make it available to people to just download whenever they wanted to. And so that's what I've been doing, just teaching how you use LinkedIn in a sensible way so that you can grow. I don't promise people, 100 times, whatever. There's none of that. LinkedIn requires you to put in some effort. And Any trainer can only give you the roadmap. We can't drive the journey for you. So you're going to have to put in some of the work, but I do break it down as much as possible so that people can think about it in different ways. And people need to think about it in different ways.
I love that. And, I was laughing because I see that as well. People in my business, I've kind of working under the umbrella of branding now, but resumes and LinkedIn profiles, and I go to people who like me. I go to their LinkedIn profile and they don't have a background shot, and they don't. I mean, and I think, how are they teaching somebody else when they don't know even the basics? And so, I applaud that, because there's so much bad advice out there. And I see some people that I'm not going to get into naming names, but just like nationally syndicated columnists who tell job seekers things like, well, you don't need to tell anybody if they ask you about salary. I mean, it's like, yeah, okay. Just, or the people that say, you need to post on LinkedIn 7 days a week, and things like that. So it is so crazy, some of the things that we all, we both hear about out there about LinkedIn in particular. And I'm so excited for your course. I may be checking it out myself, because um, what you do, and I just want you to share, because you're not someone who posts like constantly on LinkedIn, right? And so, and you are the person who actually inspired me to start posting long form articles a few months ago, because I used to do it. And then I was like, yeah, nah. And when I did it, I started doing it again. And then of course we got newsletter, so, which has been great for me. So talk a little bit about, it, what people can do. And I'm sorry, I'm having trouble phrasing this question, but
I get it. I
okay,
know what you're asking. I got the
okay.
question. So because I hang out with Annette. I get to hang out with Annette once a week. So I get what she's asking me. So look, content, there's all kinds of content you can put up on LinkedIn. You should find the content that you are comfortable posting. If you like to write, write. If you like to do video, do video. If you like to, what is it you like doing? You take good photos, post the photos. Accompany your post with those photos. You're good at storytelling and turning like a drive down the street into a life lesson. Do that. Do what you are good at. Don't let anyone persuade you. You must do this. You must do that. There's no must. Your audience is different to my audience, different to another person's audience. All of us have a different kind of audience and we have different skills. This is the magic of LinkedIn. You can be who you want to be. It's not like TikTok where, if you don't know how to dance and you don't know how to transition this way and that way, that it's not going to work. It's not like that at all. You can just be the person that you want to be. And I'm not a video person. I'm pretty good at audio and I'm very good at writing. So this is what I'm good at. This is my happy place. And so with LinkedIn, I'm allowed to write long form content. So I do. I've been writing articles on LinkedIn for a long time and I've had the newsletter function for a bit longer and I have found it very worthwhile. This is where I get most of my clients from. When I write articles, I guarantee I'll get a client because someone's looking out for that kind of content. And I write articles that are not very long. I write them around, I don't know, about 800 words, 1,200 words max. But I break them down into either listicles or how-tos or mistakes. And these are easy to consume information, but valuable to people. It makes them think a little bit about whether they're doing it the way they should be, or whether it's something maybe that prompts some thinking in people. So make sure that if you like to write, posts will get you better engagement, the numbers, right? So if you want numbers, do it as a post. If you want people who are going to be regularly looking at your information and reading like in depth, then go with newsletters, because right now, instead of articles, you're better off doing it with newsletters because people can subscribe. So whatever works for you, go with that. And that's how you can be, you're successful what you're good at.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Whatever it
No,
is.
Yeah, that is so true. And I've had newsletter for a few months, and I see it. I monitor it, and it goes up a little bit every time I publish, and it's a great thing. So I wanted to pop up Gabe. Actually, I was in Clubhouse with him earlier today, and we were talking about you, Lavinia, and I was saying how excited I was to have you here, and he's like, "Oh yes, you're so lucky to get her." So thank you so much for coming by. And as he said, his happy place is in front of the camera. And I've actually learned to I don't know that I love myself in front of the camera, but I have gotten to the point where it doesn't faze me. I just don't care anymore. I put out a video, and I don't worry, because I kind of am who I am. I want to look my best, of course, but I am who I am. So we've talked a lot about different topics, and I have a question before I ask you kind of my last question. You've been doing a lot, the whole new LinkedIn audio, and I just like your thoughts on that, because I know you've been on Clubhouse, and you do Twitter Spaces, which are really cool. I've been on a couple of those, and LinkedIn audio. And how do you see all this audio stuff kind of shaken out?
Oh, I think I think shaking out is exactly what's going to happen. I think there's going to be a rumble, but I don't know who's going to win. I'll tell you right now, today, I think Twitter Spaces is the most fun to use, especially if you're hosting. It's also fun for if you drop in on a call on some of these rooms. It is actually, for me right now, the most fun. There are some very toxic spaces, I'll tell you honestly. There are some very toxic spaces out there on Twitter, but you can avoid those easily. I find it easy to set up, easy to run, very discoverable. People can find your rooms very easily. It's super simple. So I really like Twitter Spaces in terms of what's engagement and growth and all of that. I find Twitter Spaces is great. Then LinkedIn Audio is very clunky. For the host, especially, I'm not doing any of the hosting because I don't have the patience for this. It's very clunky. I thank everyone who's invited me onto their LinkedIn audio space, because I know for the host, it's a lot of work. There is not a lot of opportunity for them to participate sometimes. They're really
Oh,
essentially gatekeepers, They're this way, that way, because they can't bring people up. They're constantly, it's actually it's a lot of work. I mean, it's not that they can't. Of course, they can say things, but they're constantly like, you can't focus on your thoughts and thinking things through when
yeah.
you're constantly gatekeeping and moving people from here to there. So I find it. So I'm not playing around with LinkedIn Audio. I'm going to wait till LinkedIn sorts that out, and then I'll be there. But what I am very excited about is LinkedIn is going to have a new event structure coming out, some new exciting event stuff happening. So I'm much more excited about that. I have a feeling that might be the game changer. I'm not sure LinkedIn Audio will be the big game changer, um, but at least not until they sort it out a little bit better. I know a lot of us have our audiences on LinkedIn, and so we want to do audio with them, but I'm not sold on it right now. And Clubhouse is losing its luster. There are
Yeah.
just Yeah, I enjoyed it very much last year, and I got to meet wonderful people like you. And last year, Clubhouse was on fire, and this year it's just like it's sinking, man.
Yeah, I know. I have a little club, and I used to be three rooms a week, and then it was 2 rooms a week, and now it's 1 room a week, and it's kind of I'm kind of like moving that to Twitter Spaces. And I'm thinking the event, because I've heard little bits. I think you hear more than I do, but I hear little bits that when you do LinkedIn Lives, that you'll be able to have sort of a live audience with you, and to actually ask you questions live. Is that kind of?
Yeah, I that's what I understand. It's going to be much more interactive, and also you'll be able to do things like ticket events, and also be able to like have some of the networking. Do you remember the old events on LinkedIn where you could do a lot more networking, and now it's kind of gone?
Yeah, yeah.
So a lot of those features, I think they're building into the new events. I haven't seen it myself, so I don't know what's happening, but I do know it's going to be that's the big thing that they're working on. LinkedIn Audio was one of the things that they launched early, but I think it's the events thing that's going to be the big game changer. So let's see what happens with that. And I think they really need to do better job of rolling it out much quicker while people are still excited. They can't do this beta testing in this long, drawn
Yeah,
out way
right.
as they're
Yeah,
doing it now.
yeah. I agree with you. I agree with you. So, I want to be respectful of your time, and we're really kind of sort of at the end there. But I just like to ask before we sort of say goodbye, is there anything that I haven't asked you that we think that we should I should have? You have some final thoughts that you just like to share for people watching now, and then on the replay and also on the podcast later on. So
Oh, thank you so much, Annette, for having me on here. You ask such great questions. I've so enjoyed this conversation. I haven't even noticed the passage of time. So thank you very much for having me on your show. This is so fantastic. And if there's one thought I'd like to leave you with about LinkedIn and about personal branding, it's that if you approach it with a little bit of a spirit of generosity, and I know everyone's out there to sell themselves and to sell a product or whatever it is you're out there for. But if you just put that aside just for a moment and just approach it with a spirit of what can you do to change things for someone else? And if you think about it in that way, if you do it without necessarily always having a call to action, always having your pitch in there, always putting in your website or don't always confuse people like that. So sometimes your message is just your message. It might have no call to action at all. It might just be something that's there to help someone through the day. It might be something to help someone think differently, change their mind about something. And those thoughts are also precious and those ideas are also very valued. So approach sometimes your content. Have a structure, have a strategy, but put in a little bit of generosity in there because that's really what will help you stand out in the sea of sameness.
I love that. That is a perfect way to end. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who's been here. I know we've had some people watching us, and we the comments, I wasn't getting them right away, but have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. It's been so fun to be here, and I thank you again so much for being here with me.